All right, what's going on, guys? Julian Edlow here, major wager contributor. Probably seen some of my articles up on the site, and I'm going to run through what I'm looking at here for NFL Week 3. Um, Obviously, a lot of huge point spreads this week, notably the Pats and Cowboys. Those are probably spots that I'm gonna stay away from, just because of how big those numbers are. But they aren't games that necessarily I don't want any exposure to in any way. I think that the team totals here are some really interesting spots to look at. The Jets obviously managing just 3 points on Monday Night Football against the Browns. Miami getting shut out by the Pats a week earlier in week 2. You can get that Jets team total under 10.5 for, I'm seeing -125 right now. I just don't see how the Jets are going to get to 10 points. The Patriots might be scraping by as well. The Jets have a decent defense. It could be, one of those, call it 28 to 10 or 28 to 7 games. Maybe the Pats don't cover it. I would rather look at that team total. And I'm in the same boat there for Miami. I saw the Miami team total is locked up right now. I've seen it at 13.5 and 12.5. We saw them score 10 in Baltimore and get shut out by the Pats. I just don't know how the Dolphins are going to get more than 10 points in Dallas here, and I think that's another team total worth looking at. The Miami one is one that I actually have played. I haven't touched the Jets yet, but I like this Miami team total under a lot. Going through some other games here, one of my favorite spots this week is actually the Lions at the Eagles. I'm seeing 5.5 now. I locked it in at when it was plus 6.5 for -105. I bought the extra half point, so I have Lions +7 at -115. We'll see where this line goes, but the way that Philly's looking, they have a couple of key injuries on the defensive side, and then obviously the pass catchers. Deshaun Jackson's already been ruled out. Alshon Jeffrey is a guy that he's questionable, but it seems like trending more towards doubtful. I think that the Lions are going to cover in this game. If you can get anything 6 or better, I would go with Detroit. Detroit's looked really solid. I know that that was a disappointing tie in Arizona in week 1, but they played 3 great quarters in Arizona and then looked really good in week 2, hosting the Chargers, winning that game 13-10. That defense showed a lot. And then when you talk about this Eagles secondary, they've let up a lot of big games to wide receivers, even going back to last year. Obviously, Julio Jones went over 100 yards for 2 touchdowns in week 2. And the rookie receiver on Washington went for $125 and a touchdown in week 1 in his first NFL game. So I think this is a spot Kenny Golladay goes off. If you're looking at any DFS purposes, obviously DraftKings, a place that I do a lot of work. Kenny Golladay, I think, is a great play this week, and is going to be a reason that the Lions cover this spread if you just bet in this game. So that's probably my favorite spot this week. Just going through the rest of the games here, the Falcons intrigue me a little bit. +110 or +1.5 points in Indy. I know it's probably a little bit of a trap spot. The Falcons haven't covered a spread against an AFC team, I think, going back their last 11 games. So maybe it's a little bit of a trap. I haven't made a play on that game yet, but if we can get the Falcons maybe at +2.5 or so, that's a spot that definitely intrigues me. Panthers Cardinals. Once the Cam Newton news came out, I was able to lock up Arizona +2.5. Now we're looking at Arizona -2, -2.5 in different places. This QB for the Panthers, Kyle Allen, he's pretty good. He was good in college. He actually beat out Kyler Murray for the starting job at Texas A&M. That's why Kyler Murray transferred to Oklahoma. So there's a little bit of a revenge narrative, if you will, there for Kyler Murray. I think this is a spot Arizona gets its first win. I don't know if I want to play them -136 on that money line, but if this moves at all, and you can get anything, closer to a pick 'em, I think that Arizona's in a really good spot this week. Carolina's just falling apart. Cam Newton being out actually probably will wind up helping their offense with how he looked Thursday night against Tampa. But Arizona's not that bad. They got that tie against Detroit. I just talked up Detroit, told you I think that they're a pretty good team. And then as 13-point dogs in Baltimore, that number was obviously way too big. They were competing in that game to the end. So I think this is a good spot for Arizona to get a win. Another spread that I think is way too big, Pittsburgh in San Francisco. This game was set to pretty much be a pick'em with Big Ben. Obviously, he's done for the season with his elbow injury. And now we've got a 2-0 49ers team that, yes, they won 2 road games to start the season, which is impressive, but it came in Tampa and Cincinnati, a couple of teams projected for 6 or less wins. And the Steelers are 0-2, yes, but they lost to a very strong-looking Patriots team, and then by 2 points at home to a good Seahawks team, and had to deal with the Roethlisberger injury, the James Conner injury during that game and kind of make in-game adjustments. I think that going to Mason Rudolph here for Pittsburgh is actually going to be an upgrade over the Roethlisberger that we have seen so far this season. Maybe not the Roethlisberger that threw for over 5,000 yards last year, but the injured Roethlisberger this year. Mason Rudolph's an upgrade. He got on the same page with Juju in the second half of that game against Seattle. He went to college with James Washington, who should now be the wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh's offense, and those two put up huge numbers together. Pittsburgh plus 6.5, plus 7 if you can get it. I think that they can keep this game close enough in San Francisco and cover this spread. So Pittsburgh is a spot that I like a lot as well. Seahawks Saints. This is another spot that I was kind of lucky earlier in the week, much like getting that number on Arizona. I got this number right after Breeze got hurt. I guess the book opened this up as if Breeze was playing, that pick'em spread that was initially going to be the line if Breeze played. So I have Seattle in a pick'em here. I'm seeing 4.5 points. Seattle is 4.5 point favorites in this one, minus 225 on the money line right now. But I feel really safe with Seattle in this game if you wanted to use maybe the money line as a parlay piece. Seattle's looked really good, and Teddy Bridgewater looked terrible, even though that game was in LA. I don't think playing in Seattle is going to do him many favors. So I think that Seattle can come away with the win here. Let me talk a little bit more about parlay pieces before we get into the Sunday night and Monday night game. I think that there's some value in both of those as well. If you're looking to parlay some money lines, I think the 2 strongest pieces, obviously outside of New England and Dallas, if you want to lay ridiculous numbers, the Packers minus 360, 7.5 point favorites hosting the Broncos. I was a big believer in the Broncos defense coming into this season. They've proved me wrong so far. They've been terrible, and that offense just has not been able to move the ball. So I think Green Bay has just as strong a defense as Denver so far this season, probably better. And they clearly have the offensive and quarterback advantage in this game. So I think Green Bay is in a great spot to win at home. If you want to build that in with a parlay, I like the Vikings a lot. That one's obviously blown up to 9 points. But just for Minnesota to win that game, I feel pretty confident there. Oakland, impressive start, but again, it was against that Denver team that we thought might be decent, and so far has not come through for us. So I like Minnesota, what they're building with that ground game and Dalvin Cook. I just don't see them losing that game at home. So those are some pieces that I really like a lot. In terms of totals, Adam Schefter reported that the weather in Kansas City is going to play a role in this Baltimore-KC game. Definitely the best game on this card, just in terms of entertainment. We've got the Chiefs favored by 5.5 right now. Total opened up at 55. It's down to 52. Still a pretty big number, though. And if we get reports that it sounds like it's going to be a rainy game, if we get reports that there's going to be wind involved in this game, that's where I really start looking at the under here. Because that's what affects the passing game. We saw it on Thursday Night Football. Obviously, 2 much worse offenses in Jacksonville and Tennessee. But Jacksonville got off to a quick start. Gardner Minshew threw a pair of touchdowns. And then we see some rain and wind come through Jacksonville and no scores for the rest of the half. So if there's going to be any wind mixed in with this rain, you can definitely interest me in under 52 for that what we thought was going to be a shootout in Kansas City. We'll see what actually winds up happening there. Let's get to those primetime games, Sunday night and Monday night. So Sunday night we have the Rams as 3-point favorites in Cleveland. I do have a lean on the Rams in this one. I generally don't get to Sunday night and Monday night football until later in the day on Sunday, but I've looked at them a little bit, and I do like the spot for the Rams. It was a bounce back spot for the Browns, obviously, on Monday night, but against that Jets team, they obviously just weren't going to score the ball, and Cleveland's offense didn't look all that good. The Jets have a solid defense, but Baker Mayfield's holding on to the ball for too long. He's locking in on Odell Beckham Jr., which at times obviously works. We saw it on that 89-yard touchdown, how it works. But if he does that for the whole game against this Rams defense, I just don't see them having as much success. And that Rams defensive line, assuming Aaron Donald, who's questionable, does play in this one, it looks like he's trending towards playing. I think that Mayfield's gonna have a really difficult time with holding onto the ball as long as he was in these first two games, particularly against that Jets defensive line. So I like the Rams there. I like the Bears -4 on Monday Night Football as a lean so far. I think Washington's getting a little bit too much credit because they played Philly really close in week 1. They played Dallas close for the first half in week 2, and then we've seen them completely come undone in these second halves. I don't love the Bears offense. In terms of my season-long plays, I played Mitch Trubisky under his passing yard total. I played the Bears under 9 wins. I played the Bears to miss the playoffs, but this is against a terrible Washington team on Monday night. This offense has to come alive a little bit against this defense, and Chicago's played 2 really good defenses at Denver and hosting Green Bay. So I think this is a time, while I don't love their offense, I think it comes alive a little bit, and the Bears defense should have a pretty easy time with Case Keenum and that Washington offense. So I do think that Chicago can cover 4 on Monday Night Football. But more importantly, let's talk totals, because after Thursday Night Football's Jacksonville, Tennessee game, primetime games, Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. The first half under is now 8-0 in these primetime games. The under for the full game also hit in Tennessee, Jacksonville. We just haven't been seeing as much points in these primetime games, and we've got 47.5 between the Rams and Browns. I think this is a spot we can look at the first half and game under. The Browns' defensive line is solid. The Rams' defensive line is solid. I know we've got 2 explosive offenses here, but neither of them have done anything too fantastic so far this season. So with the way we've seen offenses kind of slow down a little bit in the NFL this season, outside of, maybe the Patriots, Chiefs, Ravens, I think that this is a spot that we can look at some unders. And I mentioned I like the Rams. I think it'll be a close, lower scoring game, maybe, something like 24-17 Rams, but that would easily cash the under for us. And then moving to Monday night, it's a much lower total with 41, but we've seen in these games with teams that aren't as good that you can't be afraid to take some of these lower totals. Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football this past week, low totals and cashed. So I don't see the Redskins scoring many points against the Bears, and while I see the Bears covering, I don't see their offense being an explosive one that's going to score too many points. So these 2 primetime games, look, the first half under is 8-0. Until I lose one of these, I'm probably going to keep playing them. So we'll see what happens, but just wanted to make you guys aware of that trend and how profitable it's been so far this season. So definitely a spot to look into. So yeah, those are all my leans right now. I would say my favorite plays are taking the points with Detroit and looking at those Jets and Dolphins team totals. Those are my favorite spots. And then those parlay money lines that I mentioned, just spots that I really like a lot. So if anything else, this is Saturday afternoon as I'm recording this. So if anything else pops out to me before the games kick off on Sunday, just keep an eye on Twitter at Julian Edlow, and I'll have all my plays. I already have the ones that I've locked in listed for you there, and then as I come out with more on Sunday, I'll keep you in the loop there if you're following along on Twitter. And I also have that Detroit play and the Miami play are both written up in an article for you on Major Wagers, so you can read more on those plays if you want to check them out. So yeah, good luck this week, guys. Follow along, and let's be profitable.